Live. My name is Jay Mentrek. I'm a senior here at Dartmouth, and I'm joined today with Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid, Maria Laskaris, and Admissions Officer, Isabel Bober. And tonight we're here to talk to you guys about applying early decision, what that entails, allow you to ask some of your last-minute questions for us, and hopefully we can gain some insight for you guys and help you along in this process. You're 3 days away, I think, or something like that, until the deadline, so hopefully you're starting to finish everything up. But if you do have any questions, we're here to help. And just really quickly to go over the format of this chat, you'll see right where we are, our pictures. We look hopefully pretty nice to you guys out there. Under that you see a chat box, and in that chat box you guys can type your questions. There's no need for us to see you, but we do want to see your questions. We have some helpers answering them online, and then we'll answer some of them live here. So if you have those questions, type them in the box, and for now maybe you guys could introduce yourselves.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. As Jay said, I'm Maria Laskaris. I'm Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid. I'm also a Dartmouth graduate, and I'm excited to be here this evening to answer your questions and tell you a little bit more about our process.
And hello, my name is Isabel Bober. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions here, and I'm also a proud member of the class of 2004, and I think about 12, maybe 13 years ago, I was in your shoes because I actually did apply early decision to Dartmouth, and it was a great decision that I'm really happy with to this day. So, looking forward to your questions tonight.
Awesome. So yeah, like Isabel said, we've been through this process many times, both on, you guys are on the admissions officer side, so a little bit different from where you guys are, but yeah. I can relate because I've only ever been on your side, and that was, 4 years ago now, so I'm dating myself. But early decision is a really great opportunity for you guys to sort of gain early admission to the college and sort of have that early exposure and get to know sort of soon. So we obviously really encourage it and are here to help you out. So again, if you have any of those questions, type them in the chat box and we'll answer them live or have someone answer them in the chat. So just really quickly, while you guys are maybe thinking of questions and to get into the sort of spirit, re-familiarize you guys with Dartmouth, might have been some time since you visited. We'll just give you a little bit of an update of what's going on here around Hanover, around Dartmouth and the office. So would you guys like to start talking about maybe our weekend that we just had?
Sure. I wasn't here, so maybe I'll have Isabel talk about homecoming, but it was an exciting weekend.
Yeah, so this past weekend was Dartmouth's homecoming, which is kind of the highlight of the fall term for many folks, both students on campus and alumni that come back. My husband and I, my husband's actually a class of 2002, even before we worked for Dartmouth, we would come back, and the bonfire has a lot of wonderful traditions. One of my favorites, I think, is one of the ways that we welcome the freshman class. You may be familiar with the Dartmouth Outing Club trips, which 96% of Dartmouth students tend to participate in before classes start. But once they're here during the fall term, we have a really big bonfire during our homecoming on Friday night, and there's this wonderful sweep, which is kind of a big parade that includes a lot of different varsity sports captains, a lot of classes who have come back for reunions, and so you start with kind of the oldest classes here and then end with the freshman class. And what's great is that this freshman sweep actually travels through campus and picks up all of the freshmen, and they kind of come rushing in a throng around the green, which is kind of the physical center of our campus, but I think spiritual in a lot of ways too. And they run around the bonfire, and you typically run around the number of years of your class year. So they ran around 16 times, which is, or 116 times. When I was here, I didn't run around 104 times. I only ran around 4 times. So you can kind of modify it depending on how much you want to run. It's, a couple of miles, isn't it?
I think
typically?
So. Someone told me that it's about 10 miles for 116 laps.
Wow.
Kind of crazy.
That's a long run.
It's a long run. There were some students out there who did it. I was out there for a little while, and they were just going around and around the bonfire.
Yeah, but the whole community comes. I mean, not just kind of upper class students, but faculty around, staff, the community. The green is filled with people, and so it's this really kind of wonderful moment where the whole community comes and really embraces the freshman class, and they really, I think, feel like they're now officially part of the Dartmouth community. So it's one of my favorite weekends. We always try to come back if I'm not traveling for work, which happens some years, but that's what happened on Friday night, and then we had a big homecoming football game on Saturday night under the lights, which was really fun. So it's a time where people kind of come back and really celebrate their time on campus, connecting with the new students, but also friends from near and far who come back to Hanover too. So lots of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, there's such pride around the whole event, which I think is something that's unique about Dartmouth. But homecoming provides an opportunity for alums and current students to really show that pride for Dartmouth, and a lot of school spirit, a lot of fun, a lot of rich tradition, and it was a blast. I watched the whole parade on Friday night, all the way from the police car in front of President Folt, all the way through the class of 2016, and it was just really awesome. And great to see alums back. People are very happy, some old friends, and maybe being a a senior, I feel a little more nostalgic at homecoming this year than usual, but
right.
Wait till you've been lapped.
Exactly.
My husband realized that he'd been lapped more than 10 years since he graduated.
Oh.
So he was a little...
Well, it's okay. Everyone's still welcome back.
Yeah.
So, and then maybe some other updates. that we have
Sure,
from
yeah.
school.
What's interesting to me is that we are 7 weeks into our term, our quarter. As you probably remember, Dartmouth has a quarter system. And so our students will be finishing up their courses in about 3 weeks. So I don't know what the stress and...
It's getting a little stressful.
Getting a little stressful around
We're
here.
nicely in that lull right now between midterms and finals, but it'll pick back up soon.
Right, so it's been a really busy fall. I think one of the exciting things about this fall, Dartmouth is celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Hopkins Center for the Arts, which is a wonderful performing arts facility really in the center of campus. And we just opened up a brand new visual arts center, so that has really created a really exciting kind of arts district on campus. And so a couple weeks ago, we had a wonderful celebration of the arts with capped off with a performance that included about 250 students participated in a multimedia, sort of faceted concert in the Hopkins Center, which was really exciting. So it's been a fun term at Dartmouth this fall. The weather's been beautiful. But 3 weeks to go till you guys are in exams. Yeah.
And the Year of the Arts has been a really awesome opportunity and has exposed students to the arts even more so than they have before. And I think that the Hop and the people sort of affiliated with the arts have been trying a lot to sort of do a lot more programming. I don't know if you guys visited this summer, you may have seen the 50 pianos exhibit. There were 50 pianos placed around the Upper Valley. A couple weeks ago, there was a really cool display. I don't know if either of you saw this, 5 windows out on the front of the Hop.
Yeah, so cool.
It was very interesting. They sort of turned the front of facade of the Hopkins Center into a movie screen, sort of. And then with the opening of the Black Visual Arts Center, you sort of just feel this sort of it's very great spirit and excitement around the arts. I know one of the trustees at the dedication ceremony challenged Dean Laskaris to sort of meet this need and this new excitement in the arts with the new classes.
Pressure's on,
so pressure's on, but it's great and it's really exciting and it's a really awesome way to connect the students with the arts, even more so than we've been able to in the past.
Exactly. So. And if you want to see some visuals, the Dartmouth Flickr stream has some great shots of the different events that have been happening on campus, and I think particularly with the visual arts building, I'm just noticing a lot more, this sounds cheesy, but visually in terms of Dartmouth's commitment to the arts. I mean, we've always had different kind of public art and kind of sculptures and things around campus, but with the installation of the Ellsworth Kelly panels in the back of the Hopkins Center, there's this really cool and kind of scary but thematic with Halloween big bronze spider. Literally huge. Like if you were scared during Harry Potter, you're going to be scared about this spider. But there's some really neat shots on campus, and I think publicly Dartmouth is kind of displaying that commitment to the arts, not just the performing arts, which we always think about, but visual art as well. So it's been really an exciting time to come and check out the Flickr stream if you haven't been able to visit campus and want to get a sense of what it all looks like too.
Absolutely. So things are really busy around here with homecoming, the Year of the Arts, school, everything that's going on. Never a dull moment. And we know that things are busy on your end too. Like we said, you're hopefully finishing up your early decision applications, getting ready to send those in if you haven't already. And again, our chat tonight is to answer your questions. If you have those questions, type them into that comment box under our picture. We'll answer them live. And so maybe we can jump into the questions now.
Sure.
Some questions that are sort of popping up on the chat a lot are having to do with this storm. I've heard it Frankenstorm, I've heard Hurricane Sandy. There are a lot of things defining it. How is that going to affect the admissions process? If people are losing power or losing access to the Common App and applying, how will that sort of be reconciled for in the process?
We're actually getting ready to post a notice on our website tomorrow morning, but basically we will absolutely give you additional time if your school's closed and so you're not able to get last minute recommendations from teachers, or your counselors are working on the secondary school report. No worries. If you are waiting to hit the send button on the Common App and you lose power, we will absolutely give you an extension until your power's back up. So we'll post information on our website. You'll have that up tomorrow. But essentially we will absolutely be flexible with the deadline. This actually happened last year. There was a big storm on Halloween that really impacted a lot of students in the Massachusetts, Connecticut. People were out of power for days, maybe even weeks. And so, we will do what we can to be flexible with deadlines to make sure that we wait for our process to begin so that you can get your materials into us.
I was just emailing with a colleague who's actually out on the road. She's in Long Island right now, so I have family who live in New Jersey. So for you guys there who are kind of patting down the hatches, as my mom just said, we're thinking about you. And remember that the most important thing is that you're safe, you're secure.
Right.
These deadlines are things that obviously we need to kind of keep somewhat close to so our process can move forward. But at the same time, know that deadlines in general, whether it's for early decision, regular decision, try to have a piece of your application in. If you know that you're absolutely applying and you can fill out that supplement because it's really pretty simple, go ahead and send that forward because that initiates your application. The rest of the materials we can work with you to kind of come in depending on what the situation is in your particular area. So that's a good, I think, rule of thumb to try to send something in so a school knows. But if your teacher recommendation comes a day or two after the deadline or your school, couldn't get all the transcripts out by the early deadline or the regular decision deadline, most schools are going to be understanding about that and let supporting materials kind of trickle their way in. So I know you really want to be conscientious and hit those deadlines, which is a good thing to try to do, but know that we're all human beings and that we understand when things come up and happen, and so try to communicate with us as best as you can, but we're generally going to be pretty flexible. So.
And will the notification date of the decision at the end of the winter will that be affected by this at all, or will we sort of stay around that December 15th date?
We will definitely obviously be flexible and figure that out as we get into the process. Right now we're actually aiming for around December 7th or 8th. So if the storm is as worse than is predicted and we all lose power, we might need a little bit longer. But I think given our level of experience in the office and the efficiency of our processing, once we get the materials, we can pull your applications together quickly and then begin the reading process. So for now, we're sort of on track. But we'll be sure to keep you updated. We'll have regular emails that go out to applicants just to notify them of where we are in the process. And then again, if there are major messages we want to get out to folks, we'll use our website as well.
Great. So be sure to be checking that email that you provided us with your application and follow up on our website. It's not the best timing for this storm to happen, but we're flexible and we'll be able to work with you guys around that. Another question that Nando asks is on the check your status function on the website, it says that if you're missing any materials, you'll be contacted in mid-November. If a prospective student or an applicant is missing any materials from their application and they don't find out till November, how does that affect their application process?
Well, if we're missing materials that really are essential to your application, so obviously your own common application essays, your secondary school report, we will obviously not be able to begin the evaluation process until we get those materials. So just as soon as we're able to get through the backlog of both online applications and online submissions, as well as a little bit of mail that we get, which might be held up if roads and postal delivery is delayed because of the storm. We want to make sure to get through those materials. So we will wait. There's a point at which we can't wait, but usually, for the next 10 days or so, we have a little bit of flexibility to wait to collect all those materials. And just as soon as we can, we will be updating our checklist so you can log into the system and see if any essential materials are missing.
Yeah, and you have to remember also volume, right? So we're getting over 1,000 applications for early decision. We're not reading all 1,000 on November 2nd, not even close. And so if you are missing materials, that's why we give a little bit of time. So we won't, go ahead and read an application unless we have all those important materials. So if we're missing something crucial, required, that we need to kind of read the application, we'll reach out and be in touch. But if you don't hear, that's okay. That's a good thing. We're moving forward and being able to kind of read and process your application.
Great. And so, Maria, our Dean Laskaris, you brought up this point about sort of all the required materials in there. Sometimes people might not be able to fit everything that they're interested in providing to you all in the Common App and in that sort of structured approach. Matt asks the question if students can attach resumes to the Common App, and if so, would it be helpful for them to attach an activity sheet or something additional?
Well, I think a good rule of thumb, if it's something that you really want to make sure that we know about, and it doesn't fit into the common application space that's allotted, I think it's okay to have a short supplement where you would share with us the details of those things that you think really are important. I'm sure you've all heard the kind of urban legends of these resumes that might go on for pages and pages and pages. We get a few like that, and quite frankly, those really aren't helpful because it just seems like the students have just sort of dumped out for us everything they may have done since birth. And that doesn't help us make better decisions. So I think if you truly think that you can't fit all the important information on the Common App and want to send us something additional, I would suggest that it be very, very focused on those things that really are most important. So, if you've got a long list of activities that you've participated in, think about how you might group them thematically, so that if it's service or arts or student government or whatever it may be, if you organize it thematically, so we don't need to know every single little award or every single little thing that you did within a larger kind of organizational structure, but if you can give us a sense of what's been most important to you, ultimately that's what helps us to make a better decision, to really appreciate from your own perspective what's important.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Just paint that full picture.
Paint that full picture, yeah.
Absolutely. Another prospective applicant asks, do the admissions representatives read through every application, or do they stop if they do not like the application?
We read through every application. But here it kind of actually ties into what Maria was talking about a little bit, in that, I guarantee you that I will read every single page and part of the required parts of your application. It's when we get to the supplemental pieces that sometimes if you are sending me a 4 or 5 page resume or that 30-page, report of the research that you did over the summer, I might try to read the synopsis on the first page, but I really am focusing on the required materials because that's what we really said are important to us and that we really value in this process. So we'll read it fully. You'll have kind of multiple layers of review in Dartmouth's process. It's all individual review that will get reviewed multiple times. But think about if there's things that are really important to you, how do you make sure to include them in those required pieces? So if you can't fit it on the 6 pieces of the extracurricular grid of the Common App, then how do you talk about that in your essay, in the short answer extracurricular essay? Do you maybe bring it up in the alumni interview if you have one? How do others are writing recommendation letters for you talk about those things? So you have a lot of opportunities, even though you're not writing or kind of controlling all of them, to share different parts of who you are. So think about that kind of holistic nature of your application and how you could include the things that are important to you in all those different required pieces.
Great. I think that'd be a great strategy.
And we do welcome the supplemental things, particularly like the art supplements, which we do have spelled out pretty clearly on our website what each department wants. But I always caution students about spending too much time and energy on a supplemental piece without thinking really carefully about the required pieces, because those are the most important. If you have time and energy, sure, you can think about supplemental pieces, but know which are the most important, and those are the required.
Great. So we have another question from X0109, and they ask, does Dartmouth look only at the first quarter GPA of seniors, or do they look at the full year?
Well, if you're applying for early decision, we will have your full transcript through the end of junior year, and depending upon whether your school is semester or trimester, we may have a set of interim grades. So the first quarter grades probably are going to be coming out, late October, early November. So we tend to have those. So for students that are applying early, that's really what we have to go on. So basically your record through the end of junior year, and then in some cases a first quarter grades from senior year. Students who apply regular, we will then have the opportunity to see the grades at the first semester or the first and second trimester, depending on the school's calendar. So obviously we are sensitive to the different calendars that schools have and how that information will come to us. But there is a point when we're making decisions. We have, as we've said, the required information in front of us. We will make our best decision based upon what we know. There will be occasions where we will defer a student when we think perhaps the record will be a little bit stronger at the end of the first semester rather than what we see at the first quarter. So we might defer a student to see what the grades look like in another 6 to 8 weeks.
Great. Mm-hmm. And then looking at those mid-year reports are sort of grade updates. If an early decision applicant applies and they get grades after the deadline, should they send those grades in? If they're accepted, what do they need to do for follow-up? How should they handle any grades that may come after the deadline?
Mm-hmm. Well, our process includes both a mid-year secondary school report and a final secondary school report. So all offers of admission are conditional on successful completion of the senior year. So early decision is great, but you can't check out if you're admitted for the rest of your senior year. So your school will send us automatically the mid-year grades, and the final secondary school transcript. So we will be looking at those, and we'll be looking to be sure that you have maintained, if not exceeded, the kind of level of accomplishment that you demonstrated that allowed us, or that we saw during the early decision process. And we'll also take a look also at sort of personal and character attributes as well, and we'll hope that you will maintain kind of a strong record of both academic and personal achievement that we liked when we saw your application in early.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully these are your passions or things
Exactly.
that you're really excited about. So hopefully you're not quitting them or anything
Right,
like that.
right. Yeah,
So.
we would not like that.
Absolutely. So, Isabel, here's a question for you from Rue2402. They ask, what is more important as per admission committee? Well, so here's a question. How much does a good interview help your application? So maybe you can talk about the senior or alumni interviewing process.
Sure. So one of the things that we do offer is an alumni interview. Unfortunately, we're not able to guarantee them for everyone. We do them through our local alumni. And so there's a group of alumni in your particular area that's led by kind of an alumni leader. Because of the size of our applicant pool and how quickly it's grown, again, unfortunately, we're not able to interview 100% of the pool. So they're not guaranteed, nor are they required. But they're not selective in any way. So if you receive an interview or you don't, but your friend does, it's no indication as to kind of the direction that your application is moving, and it's just kind of a feature of the amount of alums that we have in that area and that applicant pool. But it is a process where we assume that you want an interview, and so when we receive your information, we pass it back out to the alumni who will get in touch with you. So that's why it's a really good reason to make sure that you're checking that email address and the phone number that you put on your application, because that's what the alums will have to reach out and connect with you. And they'll be setting these up. I mean, they could be set up as early as this week, because we started kicking out names of students who had completed applications about a week ago. And so these will happen in the first kind of 2 weeks or so, maybe 3 weeks of November. And an alumni interview, it's part of our holistic process, right? So when you think about our application, there's pieces that you control, the personal essay that you're writing. There's pieces where other folks are able to talk about you, and so your recommendation letters. And the interview is this great chance for you to have kind of a one-on-one interaction with someone from the Dartmouth community. Now, granted, if they've been out 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or if they've been out 20 or 25 years, they're going to have a little bit of a different perspective. But I think it changes the way you can talk to them about their Dartmouth experience and how it's impacted them. So it really should be a conversation, right, where you go having thought about the things that you're really proud of having accomplished, challenges that you've overcome, ways that you can kind of see yourself and imagine yourself connecting with the Dartmouth resources, but also wanting to ask questions and learn more about the Dartmouth experience from someone else's perspective as well. So the interview is just another piece of information that we add to the application, because when we're looking at an application, there's so many different pieces that we look at, and it's the sum total of the parts that really help us to make the decision. So that's a little bit about the alumni interview. I wouldn't stress too much about it. The best interviews are conversations. They should not be sessions where it's just kind of back and forth, a grilling session. But we really want you to be able to get to know Dartmouth through another venue, and for us to get to know you, not just on kind of pen and paper, but with someone who's actually interacted with you in person. So don't stress too much about them. You don't have to wear a suit. You should have kind of a professional demeanor and carry yourself well. But really, it should be kind of a comfortable interaction where you're learning more about Dartmouth and we're learning a little bit more about you.
Great. So Dean Laskaris, we sort of have an age-old question
Yes.
here coming from Jay Ropin, and the question is, will I have a better chance if I apply ED? And sort of a follow-up to that you may talk about is, how many ED students are athletes?
Yeah, you're right, Jay, that is an age-old question. That plus, is it better to get the A in the easy course or the B in the harder course? But these are important questions, so I don't mean to make light of them. In terms of early decision, some people can look at the statistics and say, oh, well, if you just look at the numbers, I have a better chance if I apply early. I just want to caution students and parents from making that kind of snap judgment, because quite frankly, a couple things going on. First, we have a very strong pool of applicants in early decision, and we also have a very strong pool in regular decision. We will not admit a student in early if we don't think they will kind of pass, in our mind, the test of being compared to the larger pool that applies in regular decision. So it's terrific. Early is a wonderful opportunity if Dartmouth is your clear first choice, but I really caution students from rushing into early because they think, oh, my odds will be better. It's really not about the odds. It's really about our sense that you are the kind of student that we are eager to see in our community, and if it happens that many of those kinds of students are in the early pool, we'll admit them. If we don't feel the pool is quite strong enough, we'll admit fewer. So we'll definitely have a sense of that as we get into the reading, after the deadline. So that's a little bit about kind of our philosophy around early. The second part of the question had to do with athletes. A couple things here just to help people understand. In terms of Ivy League athletic recruiting, there's an awful lot of that recruiting that now takes place during the early decision timetable or early action timetable, depending upon the school. And obviously, if you're a student athlete and you're being recruited by a coach, you probably know that by now. Our coaches have been working, just as their peers around the league have been working pretty intentionally on reaching out to their the interest recruits that they've been following since the summer. So I think you would know by now if a coach has been interested in your candidacy. So every year for us, as our peers around the league do, we will admit some percentage of our recruited athletes in the early decision process. That's going to vary from year to year, and again, it's really based upon the kind of information that we receive from our coaches and then our review of the application. Our process is such that we review every single application, and we will admit students based upon our sense that they will excel and succeed academically at Dartmouth, and then also make important contributions to the broader student community.
Great. Do you have anything that you wanted to add, Isabel? Or?
I mean, I think apply for ED to a place like Dartmouth because you really want to and you're really excited about a place like Dartmouth. If you're trying to strategize and that's the only reason, it's just it's not going to result, I think, in as powerful or as compelling of an application. I really love Dartmouth. I came here, I fell in love when I got on campus. It totally was different than what I expected, and I knew it was a really selective place, and I kind of went for it early, and it worked out really well. But at the same time, it was something that I had really thought about and knew that there were other places that I was interested in, but if I had applied to them later and still gotten into Dartmouth, I knew it wasn't going to be a choice. I would have sent in my deposit, right away. And so I think that's a really good reason. So I know it's so easy to kind of fall into the traps about trying to strategize and run numbers and things like that, but this is not a process that you can kind of quantify into a formula. If it was, we'd be replaced by, machines. And so I think you have to kind of follow your gut and do what you think is right for you, even if that means going against the trend a little bit or having hard discussions with your parents, but really kind of follow your heart. I know that sounds cheesy, but I think that's a good rule of thumb to follow.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice. When I was applying 4 years ago now, my mom was really nervous about me applying early decision because she saw that as sort of really just setting yourself on one track, which it absolutely does, and sort of closing some doors around you if you have that opportunity. But I knew that it was the absolute right choice for me and just what I wanted. And so I think the advice that Dean Laskaris and Isabel gave to sort of really sit down, think about it, is Dartmouth the place for you? And if that answer is yes, or overwhelmingly yes, early decision is a great process for you, but not just because you think you might have better odds. It's one of those things that the odds don't change too much from either applicant pool, and so don't make that decision based off numbers or a numbers game.
Yeah. Well, and I know finances for me were a huge part of it. So the net price calculator didn't actually exist when I was applying, but if it had, I absolutely would have gone in, plugged in my family's numbers, and I think would have had a better sense of what my financial aid application at Dartmouth would have looked like. And so if that's something that's concerning for you, absolutely think really carefully about that. But there's a lot of really great tools that can actually give you an estimate of what your award may look like. So I think you can be more informed now around early decision, and Dartmouth has such competitive financial aid packages that I kind of had a sense that I knew that it would be a strong financial aid package. But check out the net price calculator. We can take more questions specifically about that later too if you guys are worried about it. But that was a concern for me, but worked out. So.
Great. Okay, so a link just got posted in the chat to that net price calculator that Isabel was referring to. So if you guys are interested in looking at that in these last few days before applying early, definitely check it out. It will provide a really good estimate of what your financial aid package may be. That's not to say it's the exact answer, but it will sort of help you again to make that more informed decision. And so you're sort of going in with all the knowledge that you can before the process happens. So thank you to our chat friends for posting that as well. Great. So now we have a question from Hello. They ask, for both of the essays on the Common App, what do you want to see? What makes an essay stand out over all the other hundreds that you read? So I think you're both equally equipped to answer this. So anyone have an interesting...
It's so interesting because I think with these huge applicant pools at Dartmouth or at other places, the reality is that it's not necessarily essays that stand out. It's hard to be unique when we're reading 20, 30,000 applications. And so I think ones that really resonate more for me are ones that connect with other parts of the application. It deepens kind of a part of you that I've heard about or read about somewhere else in the application, but really get a sense from you about your particular passion or interest in that area, but also recognize that this doesn't have to tell your life story, right? It can kind of really deepen one part of who you are, and really trying to understand what motivates you. And we get a lot of the what in the in the application, but it's the why that we're often really trying to kind of get at. And so I think that's a place where the essays can really have an impact. But again, it's one piece of so many other pieces, and I think there's so much pressure put on it that sometimes you have this expectation that it's going to be this huge kind of impactful thing that it does. It makes a difference. It's part of our review process, but it's one part of it. So don't put so much pressure on yourself that, again, you're forgetting to do the homework, which leads to the strong grades that we hope to see in your transcript or things like that. So it's not necessarily being unique, but I think being really authentic, but also making sure that you're not trying to be too creative, that I'm not understanding what you wanted to leave me with, the reader, at the end of the essay. So you have to kind of find that balance between being creative, between taking risks, but also making sure that you know what you want the reader to understand about you at the end of reading that essay.
And I think I certainly echo everything that you said, Isabel, and I think the other thing I sort of bring to this, having helped 2 children go through the college application process not that long ago and watching them sweat over their essays. I really think as a reader what I look for is just, something about you that is interesting. And it could be what you did over the summer. It could be a book that you read. It could be a thought that, sort of popped into your head after an interesting class discussion. It could be what you hope to be when you grow up. It really could be anything. So there's really no right or wrong answer. And as Isabel said, don't make it so difficult for us to figure out what it is that you're talking about. But I think pretty much anything that you think is interesting will also be interesting to us because we're trying to get to know you. This process is one that, for us, you are virtual. We really don't have a chance to meet the applicants face-to-face. Our interviewers will have a chance to ask you those follow-up questions. All of our process is online now. So we're reading about you, an online process. We're reading your essays, your recommendations. When I approach the file reading, I'm really thinking about, can I see this person in front of me? Can I create a kind of 3-dimensional picture of you as a student, as a member of our community? And so I think what you say in your essay, the actual what isn't as important as what that says to me about just who you are. What interests you? What are you excited by? What might you do when you get to any college? Because I'm trying to envision you as a member of our community. And as Isabel said, there's a lot that we're going to look at to kind of build that composite picture of you. But it does start with your essay. How people say first impressions really matter. So, I totally agree. You don't want to just obsess and stress over it. But, it's important that you do see that as an opportunity to share with us what is really, truly important to you. Don't worry about, writing the best, 500-word essay ever, but really thinking about, this is who I am. This is what is important to me. This is what I'd like people to know about me. It doesn't have to cover the entire spectrum of your life. It could be just a little slice. But we're trying to get to know you, and that's where we begin.
And I think that's something that's very unique and special about Dartmouth that hopefully has come across to all of you guys, either through your campus visits or your interactions with students, but even just looking at the application and the fact that we have a peer supplement on there. We're very unique from other schools in that we really want to drive to that why, and I'm no expert, so you guys are the pros, but that's a feeling that I think you have as a student and as an admissions officer or someone on campus, that it's a lot more about what you're going to add to Dartmouth. And something that I tell visitors when they come here and are asking me these questions are, great, we see on your application and your activities or awards that you've won a spelling bee. And it might, the important thing at coming to Dartmouth and being a member of the Dartmouth community is not that you won that spelling bee. We don't necessarily, we care. We're happy for you for winning that spelling bee. But we're not looking for people who are going to go around and tell everyone that they won a spelling bee, but maybe someone who can teach you how to spell or improve your spelling or share that experience. And I think that's something that's really unique about our college and our admissions process, and something that the essay really allows you guys to capitalize on that and show yourself. And it shouldn't be too much of a stress. Just be you, I think.
And if you think about it, one of Dartmouth's strengths is that we are a residential community, and our student body is, up there in my mind, with the faculty as, one of the two most important educational resources that we have on this campus. And so we're really thinking about, or trying to envision you as a member of our community. So the essay, you mentioned the peer evaluation, a great way just to get an insight into you and who you might be as a roommate, as a friend, as a teammate, as a member of a club or organization. And so we really care a great deal about this, and so spend a lot of time trying to figure this out as we're reading applications.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of essays, one viewer asks, are alternative writing processes appreciated in the personal supplement? So that's getting back to sort of the unique style that I think you were talking about, Isabel.
I think it totally depends, right? I mean, if that's something that you like to do, that's part of who you are, you're really creative, you have this distinct writing voice, then absolutely use that. It's probably going to be talked about elsewhere, for example, if your English teacher writes your recommendation. But again, if you're using it as a strategy to try to stand out and it's not fitting in with any of the other themes that we're seeing in the application, it's not going to fit. Is that necessarily going to hurt or help your application? I'm not sure, but it's just not going to kind of help build this cogent whole that we're trying to understand as to who you are and then how you would then come and interact and impact our own campus. So again, not a good strategic tool, but if that's how you interact or how you kind of write, go for it for sure. Be yourself. That's more important.
Yeah, and one more fun follow-up question is, what's the best or most interesting personal statement that you've read, besides mine?
I'm trying to think, they're kind of a blur because we've read so many over the years. But
less a blur. There's not like best or worst ones that I've ever read. There's ones that have really made an impact on me. I remember at one point reading a student who was, thinking about pursuing engineering, so they definitely had like a math science bent, but they then had this real passion for the arts. And the place that came up, they really loved drama and performing on stage. And so the essay it wasn't the actual essay, but it was that it helped me understand the student as a more multidimensional character, right? And so that can kind of happen in a variety of different ways. So I don't, I do sometimes save essays that make a really big impact, but there's no theme to it. It's that it's helped me to understand the student and to be able to kind of share them with the rest of the admissions office to say, this is why this student has kind of leapt off the page and has really, I can kind of imagine them here on campus making an impact. But that can happen in so many different pieces.
I think the one that I always remember, because the student was able to kind of put me in her shoes for a brief moment in time and really helped me understand more about her. And she, this was a few years back, she wrote an essay about standing on the top of the mountain before a downhill ski race. And I'm not a skier. I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of going fast downhill. So, but the way she described, standing in the starting gate at the top of a mountain, realizing that she was about to go hurtling down this mountain at 85 miles an hour, whatever it was, just really helped me appreciate so much about who she was as a person, beyond the fact that she was a skier, but her willingness to kind of stretch and challenge herself, to take a risk. It clearly wasn't a risk that she hadn't thought carefully about, how she was going to manage the process, but it just gave me insight into something that I really don't know anything about, and she did a great job, and it wasn't especially flowery or beautifully written, but it just helped me gain some insight into, what is it like to stand on the top of that mountain waiting for the starting gun to go off and then realize that you're going down this hill at 85 miles an hour. So I just remember that as a really neat essay that clearly struck a chord with me, but really helped me appreciate why the student was so passionate about skiing.
Absolutely. Great. So we're about 2/3 of the way into our chat. So as we sort of break into this last session, we just want to remind you all, if you have any questions, to type them into the chat box under where you see our picture, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can live on air, and otherwise we'll answer them within the chat. So switching gears back to the application, last minute tips and that sort of thing. There's a section on the application where they ask potential majors. At least there was when I applied for you. I haven't looked at it since. But Amy asks, are there restrictions on what major you choose? And do you need to indicate that a potential major in your application? And does that affect your chances of admission?
Here at Dartmouth, we don't admit students because of a particular major or to a particular department or school or program. So you're an applicant to Dartmouth College and you're admitted to Dartmouth College. We do ask on our supplement, we give you a list of the 50 or so academic departments and programs that we offer and ask you to choose your top 3. It's really more for informational purposes for us, so we just can collect some data. So if you are admitted and choose to come, we use that to match up incoming students with faculty advisors. We will use it in the admissions, the process in terms of once students have been admitted to pair you up perhaps with some of our wonderful interns like Jay who can talk about particular academic disciplines to help convince you that Dartmouth is the school you want to attend. So for us it's really informational. We don't restrict students based upon the choice. We don't hold you to the choices that you make on the common application. You really have 2 full years before you declare a major, but it just allows us to begin the process of recruiting you if you're admitted and then supporting you as a first-year student.
Great. So nobody's pigeonholing themselves.
Nobody's
into a
pigeonholing.
certain
No.
place. Great. Good to know. I don't even remember what I put on that. When I
It's probably changed, right? You probably changed your mind.
Probably changed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all right, great. Another question that we have. If there was an extenuating factor which caused a student's grades to be affected, will putting in additional information about that make a difference?
Yeah, so I think what you're getting to here is this kind of idea of context, that we're not looking at any of the information in your application in a vacuum. We're really wanting to understand what are the circumstances, factors that really contributed to the choices that you've made, whether they be academic or otherwise. So absolutely, if something happened during your high school years that, maybe certain classes weren't offered, so you weren't able to take that most rigorous class, or you got really sick and you had to be out of school for 8 weeks, tell us about what has happened. I think you have to kind of make sure that the tone is such that it is not kind of, asking for excuses, but really trying to help us understand what happened. We can then layer it on with other people in the application. Your guidance counselor is probably a great one to ask to talk about those kinds of things. So we can understand what happened and then try to factor that in. But we're absolutely not taking things like your GPA or class rank just in a vacuum. We really try to understand what built those kind of more macro numbers by pulling them apart and really trying to understand all the different things that led up to those kind of larger numbers. So yes, put it in the additional information, but also maybe ask that guidance counselor or even a teacher, if it was a particular class or a particular situation, to kind of help us understand what happened.
Great. Another question we have is from Lacrosse Boy, and he asks if there's a ranking for the deferred applicants or if all the deferred applicants are weighted on the same level.
If you are deferred from early decision, we will review your application in the regular decision process, and really the process begins again. So we will not, we don't rank our deferred applicants. They simply go back into the reading flow, and once we begin the regular decision process, and we receive new information. So typically your mid-year grades are the first piece of new information that we'll receive. We will then begin the process again and take a look at you in the context of the broader applicant pool. So at no time are we sort of ranking or rank ordering our deferred applicants.
Great. Another question that we have now has to do a little bit more with financial aid and financial aid packages and the admissions and specifically early decision process. And our viewer asks, if I get in early decision but my financial situation changes, will the package I receive be adjusted to reflect that? And then a follow-up is, does Dartmouth consider other schools' financial aid offers if they are higher?
So this is a great question, and I think the one thing to realize with early decision and financial aid is that we don't have your parents' kind of 2012 taxes yet, right? We're not going to have that until they're able to submit them. And so the financial aid package that you're going to receive is based on your parents' most recent year of tax returns, which for this year would be 2011. And so when they submit those new taxes, I mean, if you win the lottery, then yes, your financial aid package is probably going to change. But I think much more common recently is that parents have lost jobs or lost hours at jobs, or there's just different financial circumstances that are not necessarily advantageous to your family. So the financial aid office will look at that and will make adjustments. And it's the same kind of thing over 4 years. You actually are reapplying for financial aid every year. And I had some situations where I had to go in and kind of have some changes made to my financial aid award because we were having trouble. And so you kind of come in, you really are able to develop a relationship with your financial aid officer, which is great at a small school like Dartmouth. They knew me, they understood. I didn't have to re-explain every time what was going on with my non-custodial parent and things like that. So I found the financial aid office here to be really wonderful to work with and understanding of your different circumstances. To the second part of the question, if you're applying early, we are a binding early decision school, so you should not actually have any other offers of financial aid from institutions in early. When it gets to regular decision, we do actually match packages from all other Ivies, and we try our best to match packages, need-based packages from other highly selective schools. But that's a regular decision piece when you have applied to other places. And early, you should not be applying to other places. This is your kind of kind of one big commitment to Dartmouth as that binding agreement.
Right. And I think, what I'd love to also throw in a little bit to add to what Isabel was saying, Dartmouth is committed to meeting 100% of your demonstrated need. At the time that you apply for admission, shortly thereafter you will apply for financial aid. And assuming that your financial aid application is complete, when you're admitted to Dartmouth, you will have, at the same time that you get your admissions notification, you'll also have your financial aid notification. We recognize that the cost of attendance is a serious concern for families, not just at Dartmouth, but when students are applying to any particularly private, highly selective institution. So here at Dartmouth, we have really made a commitment to affordability, to access. This year, we are spending over $80 million in scholarship. So all of our financial aid is based on need. We don't have merit or academic or athletic scholarships. It's strictly need-based. But we really guarantee to meet 100% of your family's demonstrated need. Just for a little point of context, for the class of 2016, so our current first-year students, the average financial aid award, I should say the average scholarship that students are receiving, is actually over $40,000. So that's 2/3 of the cost of attendance is going, in this case, in this particular year, the average is covered by scholarship from Dartmouth that you don't have to repay. So we're very, very concerned that we continue to make Dartmouth affordable and really use our financial aid resources to support those families with the greatest need.
And it's not just like the tuition and the bill that you get,
Right.
It's when you're on campus. I found that there were lots of opportunities that may, cost a little bit of extra money to do this or
Right.
that, but there were always scholarship options. I
Right.
never wasn't able, it's not like I, didn't study abroad or didn't do the international choir trip to Japan because of the extra finances involved. There were always resources. I was really able to do everything that I wanted to do here because of those resources. So it's something that really follows you for 4 years, but is also not super obvious because you don't want it to be super obvious either. So I found Dartmouth a place to be tremendously supportive, regardless of your financial situation, and really kind of understanding and respectful of it too.
Great. So that's just one portion of this whole process to consider. Katie has a question about supplements, and we were talking a little bit about those earlier. And hers is specifically dealing with the arts supplement. And she wants to know how is that factored into her admissions decision.
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple things. I think as Isabel mentioned earlier on, we do have the opportunity for students to submit supplements, particularly around the creative and performing arts. So our process is a pretty straightforward one. So you submit the materials through the Common Application Art Supplement. We receive it in our office. Then we send it off to our academic departments, music, theater, visual arts, film and media, dance, which is actually part of the theater department. As Isabel mentioned, on our website we have some pretty specific guidelines in terms of what our faculty will and won't evaluate. So really ask that you take a look at the guidelines as you prepare your materials. And then the faculty, when they make their evaluation, will then send us feedback. And faculty will let us know if there are students that they are particularly interested in. So I think the purpose of the supplement, it shouldn't be a strategy, as Isabel was saying earlier about the essay or other parts of the application. It's not really about a strategy. When we look at an art supplement and when we ask our faculty to review that art supplement, we are hoping that the student is presenting a real genuine passion. It may be academic, it may be extracurricular, but ideally it represents an area of campus life that students really want to make a commitment. Obviously, as in all facets of this residential experience that we have here at Dartmouth, we're looking for students who demonstrate leadership and extraordinary accomplishment. And so to have students on our campus who are wonderfully talented artists, musicians, dancers, actors, filmmakers, really enriches the experience for all of us. So we will certainly take a look at what our faculty say and add that to the mix. It's not the case that a less than favorable recommendation from a faculty member will torpedo your application, so it won't. But I would say, just because we receive a lot of these supplements, if it's something that's really just another facet of what you do but doesn't really represent an area where you want to commit your time and energy to as a student here at Dartmouth, I would caution you against sending that, simply because I think our faculty are eager to build this arts community at Dartmouth. And if you send us materials and they're very excited about those, if you're admitted and you matriculate and then don't participate, I think they'll be disappointed.
Yeah. Everyone will be.
Everyone will be, right, because Right.
Yeah, so in looking at these supplements, Lily has a question, and maybe some, in addition to the art supplement, which is very structured in the way that you're to send it in, but any sort of updates that students may have after the application deadline. So if it's awards, other details that they have, what's the best way for prospective students and applicants to submit this information to the office?
I mean, I think the first thing to think about is this really fundamentally, changing or adding something new to my application? Because if it's a small update, I mean, you're more than welcome to send it in. But again, want you to kind of focus on those other really big important things like your senior classes. I worry that students spend so much time worrying about the application if they're not staying focused on those great academic credentials that we're also looking for. But there's actually, I think, probably the easiest and fastest way for you to send it is to actually send it to our processing team's email address. So it's admissions.processing@dartmouth.edu. And if you put in the subject line what it is, if it's an additional recommendation, if it's an updated resume, that'll help them to process it more quickly. But recognize that, if, I'm trying to think of an update that, if you were, named treasurer of your school's debate club, and that is the one kind of update that you're sending in, I'm not sure if that's fundamentally going to change how we're going to review your application as kind of one smaller piece of an extracurricular activity. But say that there's, I'm trying to think of another extracurricular activity. If you have gone through the selection process and you've made all-state choir, and that's kind of a more regional recognition of a talent, even if you haven't sent it in an art supplement, maybe that's adding a little bit more context. Or think about, are there, kind of updates that you can bundle together, because again, if we think about the volume and the 24,000 applications that we're getting, it's hard for us to process them. We want to make sure to be able to get to those updates that are really crucial, that are really kind of filling a gap in an application, versus other ones that are just kind of adding smaller details on. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's not there already, we can add that email address to the live chat. But it's admissions.processing@dartmouth.edu. You can also send in some application materials that way as well. So we'll definitely be sure to post that so you can get everything in. But like Isabel said, we want to just sort of use discretion as well in terms of deciding what you're going to send to that email.
If there's anything that we need, we will reach out to you.
Ask you.
Yeah.
Great. All right, Anshul asks a question for us, and he or she asks, I don't have very good grades or scores, not at the top of their class, but they have amazing extracurriculars. How much do those extracurriculars compare to academics in the weighting and decision-making of the admissions process?
Yeah, well, our review process is a holistic one. I think Isabel used that word a little earlier in the chat, and by that what we mean is we really will consider all aspects of your application. So all the materials that you will send to us will be reviewed as we think about who you are as a student, both in the classroom and as a member of your school community, and also beyond your school, just who you are as a person. And we're really trying to understand two things. First and foremost, we do not want to admit students to Dartmouth who will not be successful academically. So we want to make sure that you have taken a rigorous and challenging course load. You do need to have done pretty well in those courses for us to feel confident that you're ready to be a successful student here, or prepared to be a successful student at Dartmouth. But I think it's, again, this is where being a parent, I think, has really helped to kind of sensitize me to all that goes on over the course of 4 years in high school, and how some students mature more quickly, some take a little bit longer to hit their stride. So it's not that every student has to have perfect grades, but we do need to see that students have really stepped it up in terms of the academic rigor and have been willing to stretch and challenge themselves, because that's what you're going to face here. And so the last thing we want to do is admit a student who is really not prepared to be successful, because then all that amazing extracurricular energy and passion won't be allowed, won't develop, because you'll be so stressed about your courses, and that's not what we want. So first and foremost, our review is going to ascertain whether or not a student really is prepared to be a successful student here. Most of our applicants are, which is great. Most of the students who apply to Dartmouth demonstrate to us that they are ready for this kind of challenge, and we feel good about their level of academic achievement relative to what we know that our expectations here on campus. So as we're thinking about a student's extracurricular activities, whether they're school-based or whether it's home, church, work, service, whatever students do with their time out of the classroom, we are trying to get a sense of what's been important to you. As I said before, we're building a residential community. We think the students here constitute an amazing resource for our campus. We think that we believe that students learn as much from their peers as they will in class. And so we are looking for students who really have demonstrated commitment, passion, accomplishment. Again, it's not that you've had to won that Nobel Prize or the equivalent that you might do as a high school student. So it's
pretty
not
cool.
It'd be pretty cool. It's not always the prizes, the awards, the accolades that really impress us. It's the level of commitment. Mm-hmm. And as Isabel said before, it's the why. For me personally, after having read applications for more than 20 years, it's hard to impress me just by the resume anymore. What I think is most impressive is when students tell me why they chose to do the things that they do. And it may, on the surface, seem pretty simple when you look at their list of activities and see 3 or 4 things, but they're really able to explain to me why that's been so important to them. And that, to me, is really what's so interesting about the applicant, and that's what I gravitate towards as I look at an application.
That, I think, in the authenticity piece,
yeah.
you know, I mean, it's this whole idea of doing things because you're supposed to do them and being told to do them and because of what will happen if you do them. That doesn't kind of feel as exciting in an admissions application. It's much more what's driving you towards this, because those are the kinds of things that are going to drive your decisions on our campus. And so, you know, we're not just looking at the tangible accomplishments that you've had now, but what is your potential at Dartmouth and beyond?
Right.
You know, Dartmouth is this place that you're going to be a member of this Dartmouth family for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. We're very close. It's a good thing. It is a very good thing. And so we're trying to kind of imagine that and really try to understand your potential.
So we've talked about this why and this sort of motivating factors behind doing the extracurriculars or activities or studies that these applicants are doing, but another side of the coin is the why Dartmouth, why these students are choosing to apply early decision and committing themselves to wanting to come here if they're accepted. There's not specifically a place within the application to write 500 words or less about why Dartmouth, but what's the best way for prospective students to show that and sort of paint that side of the picture of themselves?
Yeah. Well, the best way is to apply early. I mean, if you've applied early, then we get it that Dartmouth is your first choice, and that's terrific. I think, you know, beyond that, one of the reasons we don't ask the why Dartmouth question is that I think sometimes students can feel trapped by that, like, oh wow, if I don't have a good enough answer, I won't be admitted. And I think, you know, we want when we admit you, we want to be the ones to tell you why you should come to Dartmouth. So our definition of who a Dartmouth student is and what's the best fit is pretty broad. So we want to be able to select the students that we think would really enhance the community here for everyone, be exciting students for our faculty, and then we'll do our best to convince you that Dartmouth is the right place for you. Mm-hmm. So if you apply early, we get it, that you're 100% committed to Dartmouth, and we're excited to see that. If you apply regular, we're not going to count it against you that you haven't answered the why Dartmouth question. We want to base our decision on the substance of your accomplishments, both academic and personal, and the potential that we see in you to really thrive here. Not 500 words as to why Dartmouth is the right school for you.
Yeah. I mean, I get why it can be frustrating because I clearly have drunk the Kool-Aid and love it here. But I think a better way to think about that is why? Why have you fallen in love with this particular place? Is it because of the kind of close interactions you're going to have with faculty who are world-class leaders in their field? Is it going to a college kind of in this beautiful campus which still has tremendous access to resources around the world? And talk about that and less just that you love Dartmouth, because that helps us understand kind of how you're making your choices about where you want to spend your time and really develop and grow intellectually and academically and socially. That helps us to understand you better, not just selling us on the idea that you love this place so much. So if you think about it that way, it can still add depth to your application while still showing that you understand this place, but again, more of the why and then how we can envision you taking advantage of the resources here.
Great, absolutely. And I'm just thinking back to Dean Laskaris' comment that we'll answer that question for you after the process. And so hopefully that, again, takes a little pressure off of you guys. You don't have that extra essay just to come, our peer recommendation. And then we're answering the why Dartmouth question for you. So hopefully that helps in a reason wanting to come here. We like to make things easy and help you guys do the best and just want to focus on you and getting to know you and not add those sort of external pressures from any other areas. A couple more questions before we have to sort of end for the night, before you guys get your rest before reading season, is from a viewer who asks, do you care about hobbies or non-extracurriculars, so sort of activities that they do outside of school or something like that, and should they include those on the common application?
Well, I think, it really depends how important those are to you. If you are, I actually read an essay from a student a few years back who collected butterflies. And it was a fabulous essay, and he included some photographs of some of the specimens, and so he listed it on his common application, and chose to write about it. And this was clearly outside of school. It was something that he was doing because he was really interested in it. So that was really helpful for me because it really gave me a sense of what was kind of driving him in terms of his academic and sort of personal passions. If you just include sort of a laundry list of things, it really doesn't necessarily, it doesn't hurt your application, but it really doesn't help us make a better decision. So again, as we've said before, I think be judicious about what you choose to include. If it's something that's really important to you, then absolutely, we'd like to know about it. If you think you're just trying to cover all your bases, it doesn't help us make a better decision. So.
Great. So there's this additional information portion of the Common Application. And I think a lot of the viewers are wondering, what's that for? How's that best used? And would you say that that's sort of where you can include this extra information, but sort of make sure that there's a lot of quality behind it, not just quantity?
Well, I think you can use the additional information section for that. Certainly if it's something like this particular student who wrote about his butterfly collection, made that the focus of his essay, his personal statement. I think in terms of the additional information, sometimes students will use that to kind of add the additional sort of short resume of activities they weren't able to fit in the extracurricular activities. Sometimes students might use that to talk about an extenuating circumstance, as we talked about before, if there was something that you wanted to be sure that we were aware of. In terms of also other ways students use that space, sometimes students change high schools over the course of their high school career, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 times. So they'll use that just to share with us a little bit more contextual information about their family, their community, their schooling. That is actually helpful for us to know as we begin the review process.
But you also don't have to feel like it's space
you don't
that you
have to use
fill.
it. Yeah.
And I think I'm maybe dating myself a little bit in that I started reading applications when they were paper applications, and kind of the thickness of a file was not always an indication of how competitive the file was. Sometimes it was the opposite, and that people feel like they have to send in so much extra materials to kind of make up for something. But, if you have a pretty standard, you went to the same high school for 4 years, you haven't kind of had any major changes, nothing needs to be explained, don't feel like that by not putting information in there, we're missing something, or we don't think that you're actually interested or don't want us to know more about X, Y, or Z. So again, if it's something that you feel like you need to add, go for it. But if not, it's not a spot that needs to be filled.
Great. And maybe we have time for one more question, a quick one. And the question comes from a viewer, and they ask, if applying early decision, is it okay to apply to a non-restrictive early action school as well? And then in terms of that, is it recommended, not recommended, what's the sort of process with that?
Yeah, this is getting trickier and trickier with each passing year as more schools come up with different variations on the early program. So let's start with the Dartmouth Early Decision Program, and just be sure that you are aware that it is a binding early decision agreement. So that means, if admitted, you have made a commitment to matriculate at Dartmouth the following September, or if you decide to take a gap year, you push off your matriculation for another year. But essentially, you have made a commitment to attend Dartmouth if admitted. So although we don't prevent you from applying to a different kind of early program, we discourage it because, I think most importantly, we don't want to put you in a difficult situation. If you're admitted to Dartmouth and then there's other school that you may have decided to apply to under a different kind of early program, you're going to be forced into a difficult situation. On the one hand, you've made a commitment to Dartmouth because it's a binding early decision program. And so you're putting yourself in a bit of a tough sort of moral dilemma there, because you've given us your word, you've made a commitment, and now you're thinking perhaps of doing something different. So, I think the easiest thing to say is if you apply early decision to Dartmouth, you really shouldn't apply to any other programs. That's not to say that some students, as a backup, don't submit another application, perhaps of a rolling admission, a state school, a non-binding program. In the event that they're not admitted to Dartmouth and have a clear second choice, there's an early option there. So again, we don't really recommend it, but I know that it does happen. I would just ask that, again, if you're applying early decision to Dartmouth, you really respect the binding nature of the agreement that you're making. We'll be so excited to admit you, and we will be excited to welcome you to our community. And so that's the spirit with which we enter this process, and hope that you are doing the same from your end.
Great. And Isabel, maybe just on a closing note, you can walk us through this process now. So after applications are submitted, can you maybe walk through the decision period and maybe beyond that?
Sure. So like we started talking about, I think, way in the beginning, we're going to start by processing all of the applications. So it takes us a bit of time for our processing team to work through the applications to get them ready for the reading process. Then we as admissions officers go through and we'll read the applications. Again, we are reading every single application multiple times. We'll go through and kind of make our evaluation process. And then as Maria mentioned, kind of early December, definitely before the 15th, we will release those decisions. And so it's hard to kind of sit tight for the next 6 or so weeks. But I think whether it's early or whether it's regular, you hit the send button, you kind of monitor your email address or your phone for that alumni interview phone call. But at the same time, you have to move on. You have to do the other things that you're really excited about your senior year, participate in those activities, continue to move forward with your classes, and know that there is little that you can do in that 6-week window other than to continue to try to really kind of soak up that senior year experience and hope for a good decision that comes out in about 6 weeks. But I also, caution students, these are highly selective processes, and so the way that your decision kind of falls in an early decision process is not necessarily an indication of how a decision may fall for you in the regular decision process. So particularly if it's not the news that you were hoping for, don't lose hope, don't kind of crumble, really try to put your best foot forward and then think ahead about that regular decision process. Talk to your guidance counselor, talk to other people in your life who, you feel like can give kind of good college admissions advice, and then think about that regular decision process. For those of you that get good news, also go to the kind of local Dartmouth holiday parties. I remember I was invited to the Club of Central New Jersey's holiday party the day that I got my decision. So it was really fun to feel welcomed and part of the Dartmouth community, literally from day one when I got my decision letter. But remember that there is kind of the rest of your senior year to still think about. It is important to kind of stay that strong student that you were when you were admitted. And that, I think if you're thinking about Dartmouth, if you're logging into this chat and that kind of on top of your college search process, you're going to end up at a really great school. And just think about the excitement of kind of being on campus a year from now as a freshman. So
awesome. I think that's great, and a great way to end the chat for tonight. Isabel Bober, Dean Maria Laskaris, thank you so much for being with us and your time tonight. And all of you guys, thank you so much for watching and tuning in for the chat. November 1st is a few days away, so don't forget that, a very important date in looking and sending in your application materials. Like we said at the beginning of the chat, if you missed this, we realize that there's this Frankenstorm or whatever they're calling it coming around, so be careful. We'll definitely be flexible around that for November 1st date deadline around those materials, but definitely be working on those. There are a few days left, a few hours left, so thanks again for watching. We know we didn't get to everybody's questions. If you're looking for more information about the applications process at Dartmouth, please check out our website, dartmouth.edu/admissions, our Facebook page, our Twitter, Dartmouth Direct, our student blog. There are lots of different places for you to gain a lot more information about Dartmouth and the process. And good luck to everyone who's applying. Thank you again for watching, and we'll be back on December 16th for a regular decision chat if you choose not to apply in the next few days. And we look forward to reading your applications and talking to you all soon. So thanks for joining us, and have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.